Stop trying to do meditation. Awareness is simpler. Most people sit down to meditate and immediately feel like they're failing a test. You're trying to be calm, trying to be quiet, but your mind is just shouting at you. The truth is, you are not doing it wrong. You're just working too hard. I want to make this easier than it's usually explained because for a long time I treated meditation like a job. I chased techniques, I forced myself to be disciplined, and I tried to find a mute button for my brain. But honestly, it never felt natural. What finally changed things was realizing meditation is not a special skill you learn. It's just something you notice. Let me say it again. It is just something you notice. And the moment I realized that, the heavy weight of needing to do it right just vanished. I want you to feel that same relief today. Every time I used to sit down, I had a picture in my head of how it was supposed to go. I thought I needed a perfectly still body and zero distractions. And when my experience did not match that picture, I assumed I was failing. I would tell myself, this is not working, or I'm just not the meditation type. But here is the secret. The distraction was not the problem. The problem was the judging. The moment I started grading my meditation like a school project, I stopped actually meditating. Meditation did not fail me. I just turned it into a performance. Meditation is not asking you to create a special state of mind. That is the biggest lie we are told. It's not about changing how you feel. It's just about noticing how you feel. Thinking, notice that. Restless, notice that. Bored, notice that. There's nothing advanced about this. You do not need to be a monk. If a thought pops up and you know it is a thought, meditation is happening. If your mind wanders for 10 minutes and you suddenly realize, oh, I'm thinking about lunch, that moment of realizing is the entire practice. You did not fail. You just woke up. Now, if meditation is just about noticing, you might think, we do not need a focus at all. So why do we even bother with the breath? The truth is much kinder than most people realize. The breath is not a tool to control your mind or push thoughts out. That just makes it feel technical and stressful. The breath is simply a familiar landmark to come back to when you noticed you have drifted. It's like a friend waving you back home. No judgment, no where have you been, just oh, okay, I'm back. That return is not a mistake, it is the meditation. Here is your superpower. When you stop trying to fix your meditation, you stop trying to fix yourself. By practicing this simple noticing on the cushion, you're training a muscle you will use all day long. It is the difference between being trapped in a storm and watching the rain from a dry porch. When you're stuck in traffic and your chest feels tight, you don't have to fix the stress. You just notice it, and in that moment of noticing, the stress loses its grip on you. This is how you find peace in a life that refuses to be quiet. Awareness asks less of us than we think. It does not ask us to improve. It only asks us to see. I stopped waiting for a calm life and started finding a calm me right in the middle of the mess. When awareness matters more than the experience, meditation finally works. You're not behind. You're not doing it wrong. Notice what is here. Return when you forget. That is not a small practice. That is the whole one. If this shift gave you even a little bit of relief today, subscribe to join our community here at Finding Meditation. It is the best way to help this message reach the people who need to hear it the most. So the next time you sit down and your mind starts shouting, do not fight it. Smile at it. You're not failing. You're finally seeing. You have nothing to prove and no one to impress, not even yourself. Meditation is not a mountain to climb. It is the ground you're already standing on. So take a breath, let go of the effort, and just be. You're doing great. Until next time, keep noticing.